Hello, everyone, and welcome back to GovCon Hacks. My name is Ashley Dool, and today I'm going to walk through how you can get registered in the System for Award Management, and we're going to review the changes that have been made to the SBA's Small Business Search in 2025. At the end, we'll link the full walkthrough to the end of this video after it has aired live, so that way you can walk through updating your SBA profile as well. For those of you who might be new here, my name is Ashley Dool. I am your host of the channel, and I've been a government sales strategist for almost 15 years now, showing my age a little bit there. That led me into starting my business, Dool Dev. I'm also a lifelong student of acquisition and a huge workflow automation nerd. So if you are new to the channel, welcome. You will probably see content on a little bit of all of the above. So we are thrilled to have you here. For our agenda today, we are going to talk about how to prepare to register in SAM.gov first and foremost, how to validate your entity to acquire your unique entity identifier or UEI, how to complete your entire SAM registration, which includes acquiring your cage code, and again, updating your SBA profile, which is formerly known as the Dynamic Small Business Search. First and foremost, when we ask what is SAM, the System for Award Management is the official website for the U.S. government. There is no monetary cost as of today, the recording of this presentation. However, there have been mutters by the current administration to charge a fee for registration and renewal. However, that has not happened yet as of October 23rd, 2025. So you can use this site to register and do business with the government, renew, update, or check the status of your registration, search for entity registrations and exclusion records, search for assistance listings, wage determinations, contract opportunities, and contract data reports. You can view and submit bio-preferred and service contract reports and access publicly available award data via the SAM.gov data extracts and system accounts. All right, next step is the purpose for today's presentation, which is your eligibility. To get your cage code makes you eligible to do business with the government. To register for contracts, you will face a two-step process to acquire both your UEI and your cage code. You will need to complete the registration process in order for contracts or grants. You will not need a cage code if you are only registering for grants, and in some cases to do business with the SLED market, that's state, local, and education. Before you get registered in SAM, there's a few things that you want to have in place. Your business formation evidence, which is often referred to as your articles of organization or articles of incorporation. You may be a solopreneur without a formed business. In that case, you may want to include your DBA evidence. You should have a tax ID number at this stage. If you're a solopreneur, you may be using your social, though I do recommend getting with your CPA to see if there are any tax benefits alternatively. You're going to need your business bank account, of course, separate from your personal bank account, and you'll have to create that login.gov account. You will need at least a primary NAICS code. I say at least because there are often more than one NAICS code that could be utilized by the government for one service, product, or another. Things to consider here when getting ready to register in SAM are your physical address. You can not use a PO box, and you can only use a virtual office if it's accompanied by a lease agreement and a dedicated office space. The things that you should know before getting registered in SAM are that the answers that you provide in the reps and certs, otherwise known as representations and certifications section, typically suffice for Section K of the solicitation. Your entries in SAM do determine your SBA size standards. And that is going to, your entries are going to Depict whether or not you are small based on the NAICS entered in the assertion section. Your SAM must be updated at least annually. You will be given an expiration date, but I do recommend more frequent updates. Every 6 months or even quarterly should be sufficient. That should drastically reduce the SAM spam that you get as well. You're going to want to update your NAICS and product service codes as needed, update your SBA profile information like your references, change your points of contact, and update reps inserts as needed. Those are common reasons that we log in and perform an update prior to our normal update frequency. All right, some things I want you to be aware of. I'm listed them as disclaimers here. SAM has undergone rapid changes since April of 2022, starting with adding that validation process. Dun & Bradstreet lost the contract, Ernst & Young got it. The database may not have been as up to date as one would have liked. So it did cause a lot of friction in that validation process. Those kinks have been since ironed out. So most things match. There is a little bit of a lag between if you have just formed your business with IRS, just got your tax ID number, you might want to give it a few weeks before you try to register in SAM. But most recently, the system had a full-blown UI update. So the sequence of actions are a little bit different and the user interface looks completely different. The good news here is that it's much more user-friendly than it was in years past. Now, I say all that to say that we do expect it to change again. In fact, some screens may be different logging in today than they did last week when I updated many of these slides. So do your due diligence, and please let me know in the comments if you see anything that needs an update in here. All right, some common issues that one faces when registering in SAM is sometimes you submit documents to prove your address or your business name, and the documents that you submit don't match. So be sure to check your documents in advance, and still the same result ends up being if your documents do match, but the information that's on them is outdated. Maybe you recently moved. That's really common when you have a change in physical address. So I'd recommend just giving your entities an update, getting a copy of the most recent documents, and then proceeding in SAM. If you do need to make changes, here is where you're going to do so. There are 2 entities most commonly responsible for updates of information. That's going to be the IRS and the Secretary of State. The IRS Business and Specialty Tax Line phone number is on the slide there. They are the most helpful in helping you correct your address for purposes of registering in SAM.gov. If you do have to call the IRS Business and Specialty Tax Line, I highly recommend asking them while you're on the phone for an updated copy of your EIN confirmation form for your records. All right, now we're going to move into the first step of the registration. All of our paperwork's prepared. Our address and our company name matches across our paperwork. Now we're ready to go ahead and get into the system. All right, so if you've not done so already, you are going to need to create your SAM.gov account. I don't have a video to play here, but I will say that you'll go to the upper right-hand side once you get to the website, walk through the prompts to get your account created if you've not already done so. Not going to spend too much time on that. We've got more important things to address in this presentation. Step 1, validation. So your validation is going to prove the following: your physical address, your entity name, and your formation date. The matrix on this slide is also available on the SAM.gov website, but these are all the documents that you could possibly have to submit to prove that you are where or who you say you are. When you first get logged in, this is what your screen's going to look like, something similar to this. You will not see all the numbers in the middle. Yours will all be zeros, most likely. But you'll see there are 3 options at the very bottom. 1 to add a new entity, 1 to recover an entity, and 1 to renew or update an entity. Select the one that's most appropriate for you. In this case, we're going to pretend like we're adding a new entity. So we're going to create new entity, but on this page, I want to make sure I draw your attention to the download your registration guide area. If you would like to keep that for your records, it can be very helpful in helping you get through this process. The first round of questions is going to be Sam trying to make a preemptive decision on why you might be registering today. If you are looking to bid on contracts on SAM.gov, you're going to want to select directly with the U.S. federal government and bid on a federal procurement opportunity as prime contractor. Essentially, if you are bidding, the federal government's requiring you to be registered in SAM.gov. If for some reason you are registering for another purpose, select that which most accurately applies to you. All right, SAM is going to make you certify on whether or not you are an employee or officer. You'll have to select your relationship with the entity. And if you are not an employee or officer, you will also have to enter in the start and end date of your contract with that firm. Once you've certified, go ahead and click Next. That button will illuminate and be clickable. You're going to want to select Next All Awards if your intention is to acquire your cage code. The other two selections will result in your getting a UEI only. The next question asks, are you registering a government entity? Unless you're a government entity, you're going to say no to this question, and then make a selection for whether or not you're physically located in the United States and click Next. If you've previously registered in SAM, you'll see that you have the opportunity to recall an old cage code. If not, just click No and continue. I will say that that last piece is especially valuable if you're, say, a re-entry to the government or defense industrial base and you have past performance tied to an old cage, you would want to recall that. There's very few other cases where that would be applicable. Moving on to business information. This is what the new user interface looks like. So it's a lot more user-friendly. You will see that the first tab is always going to have the information that you will need to provide in that section. And there's a shameless plug for your local Apex Accelerator that does provide SAM support at no cost. Now, for those of you busy entrepreneurs, I know that there are a considerable amount of you who don't like to deal with SAM. If you're just looking for more administrative support and compliance, feel free to reach out. But if it's your first time registering and you haven't actively bid yet, it's probably overkill. Just go get free support from your Apex Accelerator. All right, here's where the documents come in, because on this page, we have to enter our business name and address exactly as IRS has it on file. Otherwise, we're not going to find a match to our search. And we want to find a match. Now, if no results are found here, you should be able to add your entity. However, you could also just give it a week or two, wait and try again. If your business is very recently formed, that might very well be the case. If something doesn't match and you need to make corrections, the system will allow you to do so. You will have to provide the documents from the matrix on a previous page in order to support whatever it is that you are trying to change. And if you do have to make a change, you will get an incident number. That ticket will be handled, addressed within around 1.5 to 3.5 business days. I know that's an odd time, right? And GSA will let you know that the ticket's been resolved, at which time, give it 24 hours, you can log back in and proceed. All right, when you're ready to log back in and proceed, you should see a little 1 in this area where it says pending ID assignment. And you'll just click there and navigate to the 3 dots to the right of your registration. On that note, we're going to go ahead and go into the full SAM registration, which is getting your cage code. Once you click on those 3 dots, this is kind of what it'll look like. This is an example of a renewal. And this is an example of a brand new registration. So back when I first registered in SAM, this is an actual screenshot of that. And you'll see how those look different. The update link in this page, in this view, actually updates this information. Whereas the update section, if you're renewing, updates your full registration. Sometimes that confusion trips people up. So just wanted to make sure you're aware. What you see on the screen is what you're going to need for this stage of the process. You're going to need to know your EIN or TIN, social security number for you solopreneurs, your taxpayer name, whether that's your first and last name or whether that's your business name, depends on how you filed. You'll also need to know the most recent tax year filed. If you are registering for the first time this year, or if you're filing taxes rather, for the first time this year, you're going to put 2025 in the most recent tax year filed box. You're going to need your average last 5 years revenue, average last 12 months number of employees, and your business bank information, along with your applicable NAICS and product service codes. All right, you're going to start here. You can see these cards look similar to the new SBA portal, and it is broken up by section. It does make it a little easier to navigate your way through. We're going to start, though, on the business information page. You'll see there are 2 tabs at the top, one for instruction, the second for review. The review tab is where your actual information gets entered. Once you've reviewed the information, go ahead and click the next button. In this case, we're going to click Start and continue to the first section, which is, of course, the entity name, which is pre-filled for us. If you do have a website, you will want to enter in the https:// in order to ensure that your website is clickable in the SAM.gov public view. If applicable, you'll enter the name of the division and provide the internal tracking or division number if your business uses one. All right. For your business information, physical address page, this should be exactly as IRS has on file. And then you'll be able to make a selection for your mailing address if in the instance it is different than your physical. All right, the business information, entity dates, and incorporation details. The start date of your business must match what's entered or what's listed on your organization filing evidence. So whether that's your articles of org or articles of Inc., the date will be on there to enter into the box. Then you'll enter the date which you opted to close your books at the end of the year or your fiscal year end date. For most commercial firms, that date is December 31st, rather. The business information review, we're going to make sure everything's correct on this page. We can edit where necessary and then just save and continue. As far as taxpayer information goes, you do want to make sure you check your tax records. And it's important to note here that anytime we file our taxes, we may not realize it, but we're automatically updating the IRS records. So if anything varies from your formation evidence, check your most recent tax return. That will surely tell you what the IRS has on file. All right, next we enter our tax ID number and the most recent year filing taxes. I have filed taxes since 2023. This is an old screenshot, but this will be changed each year as you come in and perform your renewals. You'll just enter the information in, save and continue. All right, your taxpayer name and address. This is very important, must match what the IRS has on file. If you haven't filed taxes yet and you're a solopreneur, the taxpayer name is probably going to be your first and last name. Once you file taxes, it should update your taxpayer name to your company name. So if you do end up with an IRS mismatch, that could be why. Just try it the other way and resubmit. Taxpayer address. I like this feature because with it, you are no longer required to update the IRS to your physical address if you happen to file taxes from a mailing address. So you can now make a selection on whether you file taxes from your physical or from your mailing. Next is going to be your IRS consent page. This is one of 2 places in the SAM process that you'll have to send an OTP to yourself. That will go straight to your email. You'll just plop in the code and move forward. Next section is the business type. So we're going to categorize your firm here in entity structure, profit structure, and if applicable, institution type, org factors, and whether or not you're a manufacturer of goods. The last 2 questions are your country and state of incorporation. Business types, this is going to be your socioeconomic types. In some of these cases, when you click on one of them, there are additional options to answer. For example, when I clicked on minority-owned business, the sub boxes or sub circles appeared there to allow me to mark whether I'm Asian Pacific, Subcontinent Asian, Black American owned, etc. The same thing will happen if you end up making a selection for veteran owned as well, if I'm not mistaken. You're going to want to check all that apply here. This is referred to as self-certifying. Now, please do not make the mistake of thinking checking a box is sufficient for you to bid on a set-aside contract. You are still expected in all cases now, woman-owned, veteran-owned, etc., to become certified. Now, there is no certification currently for minority-owned businesses, and the DBE program is on hold. So if you are a part of the DBE program, you're going to want to perform a SAM update, say no to that question at the bottom, and then say yes again once you are recertified into the program to make sure that your SAM stays accurate, true, and correct. All right, next is going to be entity relationships. They're going to ask for the immediate owner, the highest level owner, and the predecessor if it's applicable. If you are trying to register a foreign entity, or let's say your parent company is foreign, the parent company will need an NCAGE before proceeding with the subsidiary registration. Financial information. You're going to have to provide your banking information, and it's important to note here that if you ever do have to change your banking information in SAM, you must have the old information to enter for security. So do keep track of your banking information regardless. All right, executive compensation. So if your entity's preceding fiscal year, did it receive more than 25 million in gross revenues? We'll have to answer yes to that question. And if the answer, if we do have to enter executive compensation, then you will need the names, the titles, and the amount that each of the executives are compensated, the highest paid executives. Now, I meant to put an excerpt on this slide. I can see that it didn't update, but the rules around executive compensation have recently changed. So do be sure to go and check out that information on acquisition.gov. Legal proceedings. Have you been involved in anything in the past 5 years or anything currently ongoing? Just a selection, yes or no. And then here's where we're going to add your NAICS and product service codes. And I loved this when I first saw it, guys, because they made it a lot easier. Basically, when you start typing in the NAICS box, all of those that match will pop up. Makes it a whole lot easier for us 515 folks to select all that apply and move on. The primary NAICS selection is now a drop-down box. So it'll take all your selections from here and put them here in a list. And you're going to select which one is your primary right down here. The PSC codes work the same way. While you won't see that on the screen, it says that they're optional. I would highly recommend it. They do further describe your actual services and products rather than an industry code, which is far too broad. All right, your business size information. This is where SAM is going to determine your size standard. So your answers in this are completely important. The worldwide, if you're a small business with one location, you have one headquarters and everybody works from that place, you're not going to enter anything in the location box. You're only going to put your worldwide in. If you enter in both places, SAM might deem you not a small business and not give you an SBA profile. So only enter in the location options when applicable, and you will know if it's applicable to you. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me go back real quick. Your annual receipts and your number of employees are calculated in accordance with 13 CFR 121.104. What that says is that you, in the box, shall enter your number of employees averaged over the past 12 months. And for annual receipts, those are averaged over the past 5 years. You can click the little I on the screen to see an excerpt of that rule and what you should put if you need a reminder. All right, reps and certs. This is short for representations and certifications. They're declarations made by entities when registering in SAM for government contracts. They confirm the accuracy of the info provided, compliance with laws and regulations, and flag any exclusions or prohibitions that might disqualify you from receiving government contracts. Most are yes or no selections. They pretty much look like this. Anytime you select vendor will provide with information with specific offers to government, you are expected to do so. On the screen, you'll see an example of what those questions look like. However, answering them is going to be more or less on a case-by-case basis. So rather than to confuse anyone, we're going to skip over the reps insert section for the sake of the presentation, as those answers are going to be different depending on who you are and what you do. All right, this is an example of an actual solicitation section that allowed for you to provide any variance that exists in your reps insert. So for any time you select, vendor will provide information with specific offers to government for your answer. Somewhere like this is where you are going to be providing that information. All right, the points of contact page, while it looks a little different today, there's 3. The same information is still required. The 3 POCs are mandatory: accounts receivable, electronic business, and government business POC. If you're planning to apply for an SBA certification, you are going to want to make sure that the government business POC is the qualifying owner of that certification. The info that you're going to need for each is going to be the title, first name, last name, email, phone, and for some, a physical address. The next to the last section of SAM is financial assistance. So even if you're registering for contracts, if you would like to also be eligible, if you would also like to be eligible for grants, you're going to want to complete this page. Say yes. There will be some clauses. Be sure to read and understand those. Check the box at the bottom and save and continue. All right, DSBS, and I should have dropped the D on that slide. Apologies. Now it's just SBS. It's merely a mention in SAM. And in SAM, it's still referred to as DSBS, the Dynamic Small Business Search. So just so you guys know that SBS and DSBS are the same thing. And it's now located at search.certifications.sba.gov. While they put a little plug in here for DSBS, it's also important to note that you can't do anything with it until after your SAM registration is active. So don't forget to go back and do DSBS when you get that active notice from SAM. Here's what you can expect post-submission. Your registration is going to go through IRS validation. If it fails, you're going to know pretty quickly. You might have to update info with IRS, or you might have to make an edit to the IRS consent page on your SAM registration and resubmit. Next step is cage validation with DLA. You might receive, especially if it's your first time registering, you might receive an email from DLA.mil. They're going to have a bunch of questions, and they're going to give you 3 business days to respond. Be sure to answer all those questions and attach the necessary documents. Otherwise, they're just going to send you back and you have to resubmit again. If you need more time, just communicate with them. They're very nice over there. They may not be there because of the government shutdown currently, but on a normal day, they're happy to give you more time as long as you communicate with them that you need more time. Once you're active, go ahead and proceed with submitting your notarized entity administrator appointment letter to the Federal Service Desk at fsd.gov. And on this page, this is Federal Service Desk. You can submit a ticket, chat, call, but for the sake of the entity appointment letter, it's going to have to be to submit a ticket. In that search bar, I bring your attention to that because that's where you're going to want to get the most recent instructions, always, always, always the most recent instructions for the entity administrator templates. They update those things pretty often, and if you submit an old template, you're going to end up incurring multiple notary fees. As a small business, we have to watch our expenses, so just be sure to get the right one the first time. All right. Once you submit your ticket, your notarized letter, rather, as a ticket to the FSD to appoint yourself as the entity administrator, you will find the most recent template at FSD.gov by searching entity administrator. It's going to come up, the correct article will come up in the form of a question. It will say, how do I make myself the administrator of my non-federal entity, or something of that nature? That's when you know you're in the right place. And it is a good idea, once you have appointed your administrator, to also have that administrator assign a second administrator. In case somebody's sick or out, someone needs to be able to, at all times, update and manage the SAM registration. All right, this is what that article looks like. You can see on the slide, at the time I took this screenshot, it was updated again 8 days prior. So do make sure that you grab either the single entity, multiple entities, or international entity template, whatever one is correct for your circumstance, and fill it out in entirety, sign in front of a notary. I advise against using a virtual notary that will not give you someone that's in your state, the state that you're located in. I do find that notarize.com does now assign me a notary in my state for those of you who prefer virtual, but SAM is going to question it if the notary that you use is outside of the state which you say your business is located. So just be cognizant of that. All right, and step 3, last but not least, we're going to pretend that our SAM is active. We have our cage, we have our UEI. Now we need to go in and update the SBA profile. What SBS actually is the small business search. It's SBA's database of small businesses registered in SAM that have opted into public search. It's also used by procurement officials during the market research phase of the procurement cycle and prime contractors when they're trying to fill their teams for upcoming opportunities. I like to think about it as government search engine optimization, and it's free for you. All right, the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to log in and create an account and claim your company. That is on search.certifications.sba.gov. Let me see if I can put that in a banner real quick. Give me a second here. I'll put it on the screen. Here's where you're going to go. And you're going to enter in your unique entity identifier, your cage code, and tax ID. If you are planning, or if you are pursuing a SBA certification or already have one, it's important to note that the qualifying owner must complete this process. It is a royal pain to get an account unlinked. We actually have several tickets submitted for several errors that have occurred in regards to that, and not one of them has been resolved yet. So please be sure, as the qualifying owner, that you are the one claiming your company. The sections that you're going to complete are participation, overview information, organization ownership, certifications. NAICS codes get changed in SAM, while they are also visible here. Service information, export information, and performance history. So in the overview, you're going to find your capability narrative, the capability statement that's supposed to say PDF or URL. Apologies on that, but you can now upload your capability statement in PDF format. You can also add a second website. So if you have like an e-commerce website, that will go in there as well. Principal owners, names and titles, SBA reported certifications. So for the NFGC's part, folks, I do want to bring up that you can add your state level certifications, any industry specific certifications that you have. Maybe you have a PMP, or you're a social worker, an engineer, or whatever your trade might be. Any licenses or certifications outside of the federal government can go in there. Keywords, special equipment, materials, bonding, and quality assurance standards are all in the service information as well. So while we're not going to go through SBA screenshots in this particular presentation, after this is streamed, I will go ahead and link our full walkthrough that's already on our YouTube channel. You can search at GovConHacks channel for SBS, and it should pop right up also. But we will go ahead and link that so that you can smoothly transition right into the next segment. So once you get in there, you will just have to, this is kind of what it looks like, and you'll just have to make your entries and then click save after each section. The full walkthrough, again, you'll find on our channel here at youtube.com/@GovConHacks. Just search for SBS and it should come right up. If you need assistance with this stuff, guys, there are plenty of resources out there. Your Apex Accelerator, they help you at no cost. Your SBDC will probably be able to help you. I would say SBA, the government shut down right now. I know those folks are probably not in the office, but like myself or another GovCon consultant that's familiar with the systems and how to overcome these challenges, there is help out there. So if you're stuck, don't let that be the reason you don't compete. Just reach out and get some help. If you have any questions, drop them in the chat. I love getting questions. I monitor the questions and I try to get back to everybody within 24 hours. And I do want to thank everybody for being here. I know that SAM is a very dry subject. You can totally support us for free at no cost by liking, tapping the bell to subscribe, and tap the bell for notifications, commenting, sharing. Share this with somebody who it will help. And I thank you all for being here. You have a great evening and a great weekend. Talk soon.